Okay, welcome to my podcast at Ofiong Akwa Speaks on Akwa Ibom. My name is Ofiong Akwa. These podcasts talks about Akwa Ibom political, economic, and cultural issues. Joining us today is Aniekan Udofia, a fellow Akwa Ibomite. And I think with time you're going to get to know him better. But let's just say that Aniekan is an Akwa Ibom patriot. To me, that's the greatest introduction I can introduce somebody as. Um, for example, for me, I just prefer to be called Ofiong Akwa Ibom patriot. If you give that to me, that's better than any academic or professional attainments, as far as I'm concerned. So, Mr. Udofia, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I should just start by some words of commendation because I've come across your works, and for me it was very intriguing to see that someone that is that passionate about Akwa Ibom State. And when I found out about you that you're not even in Akwa Ibom, you are in an environment where comfort is almost guaranteed.
Yes.
And the reason you're bothered about home is what attracted my interest in you because I for one, like I said, in the last 5 years, I've been very bothered about issues of governance, whether in Akwa Ibom State or in Nigeria. And even when I had the opportunity to leave, the passion didn't die. And coming across your work, coming across your podcast to see what you have been doing, it just encourages me that if someone at this age and at this level of attainment can still care about home, then it's something to cheer. And I must commend you. The passion with which you go about it is it's second to none.
Thank you. I think we should commend each other because there are young people like you now who focus on their professional pursuits and just look at Akwa Ibom and Nigeria as a place to just send money for our poor relatives, which we do. That's not the issue. I've lived
Yeah,
outside Nigeria for several decades. If I want to count how much money I've sent, I think I would have been a billionaire by now. But
very true.
nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Those people will keep depending on you till tomorrow. Since they were children, you send them to school. After school, I'm not saying it's everybody. Look, it's not everybody. We have the Gospel Aquabios and all the big people who control stuff. That's not what we're saying. I'm talking about ordinary people. No matter what to do, they finish school, they can't get a job. I now have relatives, cousins, who cannot get a job. And even if you say to yourself, maybe I have a classmate who can give somebody a job, but how many people can you give jobs to? Maybe one person, if you're lucky, or two. So for me, the issues we have is more than just send money or or help a poor person or do medical missions. I have done medical missions where I have participated with groups of doctors and other medical personnel to go to Akwa Ibom and give people free medical care. But that was the earlier part of my career. I have found out that those things, they're nice. It's like giving somebody arms on the street. It's like giving somebody, 50 naira who is begging you on the street. The person will beg you forever. His children will beg you. It will continue. So we are very conscious of why we do what we do, and we are very happy and very proud of it. I mean, God put us there in Akwa Ibom. If I was born here in New York, where I live and work, I guess I would maybe I'll just send money and just not worry about it. But I grew up there. I understand what is happening, and I know that we can influence change there. That is why we are doing what we are doing. For example, we are talking about Akwa Ibom in particular. Akwa Ibom is not an oasis. Akwa Ibom is part of Nigeria, not just part of Nigeria, but financially the most important part of Nigeria. A lot of Akwa Ibomites, they don't let this sink in, that when Nigeria does a budget for 10 trillion, close to 30%, between 20 and 30% of that budget is from Akwa Ibom alone. This is 36 states. So we are aware of that, but we are also aware. Someone said to me, he said, you are very critical about how Akwa Ibom have not been treated in a way that basically shows that we contribute the most to Nigeria financially. He said, but in Akwa Ibom, the what you call the peanuts that is given to our political leaders in Akwa Ibom, they don't use it for the good of the state anyway. So you are a hypocrite if you don't want to talk about them, which is the reason why I chose recently to talk about the state. I know some things about the state, but so I really chose now to really speak about the state. And when I speak about the state, there are a lot of younger people who think, oh, he doesn't know anything about the state. He sits there in New York and talks about the state. But people don't know that all through my life, I have always been connected with the state. In 2002, 2003, I took a leave of absence from my university post in New York and came to contest election to be a senator in Nigeria. A lot of people in Akwa Ibom, a lot of people don't realize this. I contested against Effiong Bob. Effiong Bob was an attorney general under Victor Atta, and I was invited to come and contest. I took off from my job. I took a leave of absence for 2 years. I didn't end up staying for 2 years, but I didn't get the nomination, and I was very happy to come back. But what it did for me, it exposed me to the political system. So I had an opportunity to say, I'm contesting for Senate. And they were like, well, you have to go and talk to the chairman of the party. And I go to the chairman of PDP, which I joined.
Mm-hmm.
Before I go, they say, when you're going to meet chairman, you don't go with less than 400,000 naira just to greet him. I'm saying this to show that I kind of went through that system a little bit. I have a sense, an idea of how the system is run. Even when I wanted to run for Senate itself, my cousin, Larry Essen, that is the person who actually was the first Director General of Calabar Carnival from day one. Calabar Carnival was started by Donald Duke, but Larry is the technical and professional person who actually went to Barbados and organized it. So he took me to Donald Duke, and I said, I want to run for Senate. And Donald Duke, who was then governor of Cross River State, said, you want to run for Senate? I said, yes. He said, have you talked to Babangida? I was like, what? He said, you need to go to me now. You need to pay him a visit. So think about this. My first reaction was, what has Babangida got to do with me running for Senate in Akwa Ibom? But I got to understand that. I got to understand that part of Nigerian politics, those people control politics at the national level. And these parties don't belong to the state. It's a national party. So if the Emir of Sokoto, if the Sultan of Sokoto is important, you need to talk to him because he may talk to the chairman. In short, I'm giving this a sense to know that, yes, I know what is happening. I have a sense of what is happening there as much as the next person. That is not the same thing as living there and having a recent experience, which I think people like my co-host today, Anekanu Udofia, does. So we're going to talk about, and as I said, no matter what I know, you can't replace it with the experience of people who actually lived there recently, because just because something happened 10 years ago, that's not necessarily the situation today. The situation in Nigeria and Akwa Ibom is very, very dynamic. I am aware of that. That is why I usually try to talk and interact with people who are doing the stuff today, who are right there undergoing the experience over it. I wanted to start off by our talking about the performance of the newly elected governor of Akwa Ibom, Pastor Moino, who was elected at the end of May last year. If I'm not mistaken, 29th of May. I think by now we have actually passed more than a year, but they're doing the anniversary. They're doing the 1 year anniversary of the state. So I've spoken for quite a lot. So I'm going to allow Aniekan to ask me questions, to engage me, so that we look at what are his achievements, if any. What are the things that a lot of people feel that he should do? I have talked to people from Akwa Ibom and the elites, some of the elites that we have there, these are people who are connected with the government or businessmen who are doing very well. They have a positive view because they have access to him. But I've talked to a lot of other people who don't have access to the government in terms of, that kind of patronage type access, and they're not happy. They do not feel that the state has done very well. They feel that the state is more insecure now than before, etc. So that's really what we are going to talk about today. So Aniekan, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much for the background that you provided, which for me is very key. I followed keenly the narration you were given. For one, I think that anyone who questions why anyone in the diaspora is concerned about Akwa Ibom does that from a point of ignorance, because we are feeling the brunt of what is happening at home. And if most of us are not careful, we might even fall back into the poverty net of our relatives because of the pressure on the resources that we make from here. And so you have every right to be concerned about what is happening back home. And the world, I don't know, we on one hand, we say the world is a global village. And when somebody from one part of the globe makes a comment about one village, they say you're not there. So what is then the concept of the world is a global village? I particularly think that you're on the right path. I don't know who would fault me that I'm not on the right path to be concerned about what is happening back home, because there are times I've been worried about the circle we are even involved in. You make this money, your remittance is not for investment. Your remittance is for consumption. So we are servicing a consuming economy and not an investment economy back home. So most of us, you like you were saying, I can imagine the number of years you have stayed in New York, what you have remitted back home. I mean, it's something that should have established industries. It's something that should have established businesses that will. But the first need of man is matter, which is hunger, food. And somebody has to eat first before you now tell him, oh, we have to invest and all that. So that's our dilemma. And I want to congratulate you. When you gave a background of the nature of our politics, I have been close to what is happening. Meritocracy is nothing near what is practiced in Nigeria. The people who emerge are a product. The people who emerge are a product of compensation. And so you couldn't have come from New York and become a senator, because perhaps there is someone whom the political class feel is his turn. I mean, we have a president that came on board on the mantra that is a miloko. Is my turn. So that's the nature of our politics, and it's really sad because a lot of talents will leave. Look at the local government system. The local government system is a mess. It's a mess. If you will see our political class deliberately throw up people as councillors who cannot who cannot spell their name. Not to talk about writing a sentence, because someone else can write a sentence for you. But to spell your name is a problem. You have an interaction with a councillor from your local government, and you whip at the government at the grassroots level. And so what they've practically done is to weaponize poverty. And I tell you, sir, in all honesty, I fear if I didn't have the ability to feed myself, if the system would have consumed me, because a lot of my contemporaries that the system have consumed is the basic fact that they lack the ability to feed themselves.
Yep.
Once that is taken away, I lived in Akwa Ibom for several years. I was an independent-minded person because on the job I was doing, I was good at it, and I was able to not just showing passion on the job, I understood how to convert the potential on the job to tangible gains. And so I was comfortable as an individual. You would not count me as a journalist that will come for an event and will be waiting for 5,000 naira, 3,000 naira peanuts. So I just took myself off that strata. And so is the reason many of us can talk like this. And again, upbringing, this spirit of contentment is not really found so much in where we are coming from. People are not contented. I used to tell people that, look, I started off working on a salary of 1,500 naira. I progressed to 30,000, progressed to 250,000, moved to 1 million. Then at some point I couldn't place how much was coming in. So if today I see 10 million, I'm the same person that lived on 1,500. Yep. And so it will not get into my head. But most of these people, the upbringing is poor. Contentment, they don't know the value of contentment. They don't know the value of integrity. Their parents sometimes may not have had a name, so they don't even have any name to protect. And so you just see them run wild, and it becomes like a wild west. So it's really sad. And I tell you, this what you're going to do now on Umoino at 1.
Yes,
it will take a critical mind to understand where you're coming from. It will take a critical mind. Trust me, you will be misunderstood. I have apologized ahead that since I'm becoming difficult to understand, just allow me to be the way I am.
Yep.
Because I'm particularly close to the political class in Akwa Ibom State. I am close to the political class in Akwa Ibom State. And they know me. They know me that I'm someone that will tell you how it is. I mean, the least I can do is to be truthful to you. We just have praise singers around the governor, the praise singers around government officials. And today, look at the lot in Akwa Ibom. So I am particularly happy that I have this opportunity to have a conversation with you on Akwa Ibom at 1 year after the Umoino administration. Are there tangible gains we can take out so that we can place? I would allow you to. The manifesto of the governor was not written and kept in Akwa Ibom State. It was a public document. Absolutely. And so I can be anywhere in the world and begin to ask the question, what is happening to agricultural development? What is happening to education that we talk about? So these are some of the issues I would want us to look at. So I don't know, if you permit me, I would want to start the discussion by telling you, 1 year so far, how far would you say that this administration has gone? Given that this administration came on the mantra of Arise Agenda, agricultural revolution. The word is revolution. The word is not. The word is not. The word is not. The word is not coming to my head now.
It's not reform.
Yes.
It's not slight changes.
Yes, it is a revolution. So it means that it's something that we are supposed to see a change immediately, because it is a revolution. It's not supposed to take a slow pace. Then they talked about it. Then there is rural development, then infrastructure maintenance, advancement, security management, and educational advancement on the basis of these key words. I want you to give me your opinion of what you think that in the last year, this government, how the government has fared. So that we don't mix it up, let us start with agricultural revolution.
Okay. So yes, I will talk about that. But if you don't mind, though, I will start, from the agri part. If you don't mind, can I say so? Because you mentioned something in your opening thing. You mentioned something about local government.
Yes.
Which is the third tier of government in Nigeria. Today, as we sit here in Akwa Ibom, they are undergoing, there is the transitional committee for the local governments, like the transitional chairman and all the people who run the transitional committee. They have just extended their tenure by another 6 months. I'm just giving you this a sense of the governance itself, because to me, sometimes you talked about how people are reacting. When somebody does not have a means of sustenance, some people, not everybody,
not everyone, yes,
are ready to sell even their own parents. So, but even the way the system itself is structured, they are now 6 months extension. During this extension, there is a bitter struggle now for who will be the substantive chairman when the election comes. That struggle is not candidates going to talk to their local people about what they can do, is who Umoino, the governor, will nominate. Because the governor is going to end up essentially, personally picking the 36 local government chairmen in Akwa Ibom State. This is not about Umoino himself. The previous governor did the same thing. The governor before then, Godswill Akpabio, did the same thing. But we are talking about Umoino. He's about to do that. Think about this. If he's going to be the one, and he's the one to pick, how do I know this? Because people are campaigning with him already. People are trying to get their names there so that it is the names that they would submit, which shows you that the democracy there is a farce. It's a farce because an individual, this reminds me, you may not know this about me, but I lived in the former Soviet Union. I lived in Moscow. That is how the Communist Party used to do election. And they will pick that you don't have any kind of election. The boss, the governor, the president, whoever is running the area will just be like, okay, you are Neka, you are the chairman. And that's the end of the story. And nobody needs to like you there. So you have no obligation to anybody in that local government. You collect your money if you are from INI, local government in Ikoro Peninsula district. You don't even go to INI. You come and come and build house in you and stay there. So I kind of wanted to put that into the discussion that right now, even in terms of the system itself, to me, this is the first fault of the governor because that system has not been democratized. I understand the general political implication of it from Abuja because the governors want to control that. And that control is not even a democratic control. They want essentially a dictatorial control where they'll decide these people by themselves, not by election. So if someone is brought in that way, why should the person be loyal to people? The person is going to be loyal to the person who brought him there. And development is going to go in the opposite direction. Let me just put that in.
Yes. No, so that before you go to the main subject, let me bring you back to this local government issue. There are key issues I want you to note in this local government issue. One, the current transition committee chairman were given 6 months term.
Yes,
were given 6 months. The governor. The governor sent a letter to the House of Assembly to extend their tenure. The House of Assembly said they would not extend until they assess the performance of the 36 local government. They went on a tour. They went on a tour of the local government, and in their word access, the governor established a committee to assess the performance of this local government transition committee chairman. And later, in just one press release, they said their tenure had been extended. And they said those ones that didn't perform well, grace covered them. How ridiculous can a government be? How wasteful that an institution like the House of Assembly can embark on an assessment tour and it had no impact. It had no consequence. There was no, because you see, once there is no sanction, you can't achieve any deterrence. So deterring a local government chairman from underperforming doesn't have any consequence in Akwa Ibom State, because a governor feels that grace can cover everyone. How in the 21st century are we talking about grace over poor leadership? That is on one hand. So resources, time had been put in to access these people, and in just one press release, their tenures were extended. That's on the other hand. Coming back to the issue of selection, let me tell you one irony that I have discovered in Akwa Ibom State. The current ACISEC chairman, Elder Anyedi Ikoiwak, has been in charge of ACISEC. And in 2018, Anyedi Ikoiwak conducted an election, local government election, and came to Uyo and held a press conference and declared the winners in the 31 local government areas and the 329 wards that the PDP won all the seats, and asked journalists to go back to the local government to get the results, to get the figures.
Wow.
And in that same 2018, the PDP in Akwa Ibom State was preparing for an election, a gubernatorial election, that Nsima Ekere was the governorship candidate of the APC, and Udomi Manuel was the governorship candidate of the PDP. Nsima Ekere now granted a press conference and said that the same template that Elder Anyedi Ikoiwak used for the local government election is the same template the federal government will use in the gubernatorial election in 2019. Do you know that shamelessly these people began to shout that, oh, you're threatening us with federal might? And my position then was, how do you rubbish a local government election, and you say he who must come to equity must come with a clean hand, and you now expect that the same federal government that controls INEC, just like you control ACISEC, should not use the powers against you. So it's a very sad reality that we face. That today you have an Elder Anyedi Ikoiwak in as the ACISEC chairman. As the ACISEC chairman, he has never, since he occupied that place, has never delivered a credible election at the local government level. And tomorrow, in 2027, if they conduct local government election and do all this, the abracadabra, and declare one party as winner of all the seats, in 2027, they will now be calling for free, credible election. You see, that's my pain about the level of hypocrisy that we see in Akwa Ibom. So for at the local government level, there's no governance. There's no governance. The people who will be thrown up are just people that will be unpicked, and they would say, okay, this is either the political leader's choice or maybe the governor's choice. So the government at the grassroots level has been destroyed.
That is clear. By the way, I have heard, maybe you can confirm this later, that Ikoiwak has been removed. I heard the past couple of days that Ikoiwak has been replaced by somebody else, but it's going to be the same difference. Anyway, if it's true, it was just somebody told me that Ikoiwak has been has been changed. So essentially, maybe the governor is looking for his own equal work because that system is already in place, and it's just a matter of rinse and repeat. That's really what this is. But it is important for me that people need to know about this. This thing needs to be talked about at fora different from how they talk about it, because you may say, well, people know all this. Yeah, it is certain people that know it. The ordinary people are not that sure what is really going on. But the people in part of that whole political class and they know that this is what is going on. But what do they care? So let's go back to you were talking about agriculture. You were talking about agriculture. Let me just tell you by the way, I have looked at what is listed in the Arise agenda on agriculture. A lot of things. I mean, if you read it, if you are an agriculture engineering student or agriculture economic student in the university, you may think, wow, maybe I'm in Iowa, or I am in somewhere where agriculture is done at that level. A lot of sweet language. But let me quickly tell you this story when it comes to agriculture. So there's a friend of mine who is investing in agriculture in Akwa Ibom as we speak. In fact, I'm going to tell you two stories. That my friend is investing in agriculture in Akwa Ibom as we speak. Before then, in the previous government, the investment in agriculture came from outside the state. Came from outside the state. And in fact, the person, he was located in Itu and he invested in agriculture in the state. As far as I know, he's the one foreigner that Udom Emmanuel brought who actually brought his own money to invest in agriculture. That story ended very, very badly. Through people who know him, and I was told about this, and I looked into it. That story ended badly. The person regretted investing in agriculture in Akwa Ibom State. Let's fast forward to today. I have a friend of mine who took his own money, went into Akwa Ibom, and he is investing in agriculture as we speak. As we speak. His own hard-earned money over the years. He's somebody who had done very well for himself. He bought land, he bought, areas where he's doing things there. He's using his own money. And one of the things that he decided to do, because he was able to buy land, he was able to buy equipment, is because the person comes from outside the country. It's if I want to invest in anything today, no matter what it is, even Elon Musk, one of the richest men in the world, if Elon Musk wants to build electric vehicles, he gets money from banks, he gets grants from government. No rich person brought his money from the beginning. You get support from the institutions. This, my friend, when he tried to go to the banks, he found out that the banks, first of all, the interest rates are too sky high, and the banks themselves are corrupt. He had already decided not to go through government. So he's using his own money. Every penny he's spending there is outside the state. And the stories I've heard, I'm not going to repeat it here. So then let's go to government policy, because I'm mentioning these things so that we look at the government makes all these announcements about agriculture. I'm saying this because I've talked to people who are private investors in agriculture itself. These are the people that you would think would benefit from all of these stated things in Arise. People who invest in agriculture, people who do agriculture at a level of investment, at the level where they expect to reap profits from the agricultural revolution that you are talking about here, they have zero confidence in Umoino's policies. That much I can tell you. You may say, well, it's 1 year, but that was how it happened in Emmanuel's time to hold. They say it's only 1 year, let's wait for the second year, let's wait for the third year. If people don't have confidence in the policy from day one, there is not going to be any change. So I don't see the agricultural revolution here because business people who are doing, I'm talking about one person, but this person interacts with all the other business people there. They are actually trying to avoid the government. They're avoiding the government. Some of them are going to get grants from the government and they're not going to pay it back. Those are the ones connected with the government. But these ones are avoiding the government completely because they don't feel that the agriculture policy written on a rice is worth the paper it is written on.
Okay, so now still talking about this agricultural revolution. You know, when somebody says I want to embark on agricultural revolution, are there tangibles that you can break down and say, okay, these are the components of how we want to achieve this agricultural revolution? What can one identify? For instance, if the Kano State, the Sokoto State governor said he wanted to do agricultural revolution, we saw him bring in tractors,
Yes.
farm equipment. So for the agricultural revolution in Akwa Ibom State, what would you say are the tangibles, the things you can say, okay, these are the things that are the components to even stimulate the agricultural revolution?
Well, there is very little. That was maybe because I did not really go into detail here. People who are trying to invest in agriculture, because remember, the state government is not as if the state government is going to build its own agricultural industries. It is asking to support private people. That is it, it is what it is asking to do. The tractors that you mentioned about is part of the support. That would have been the support you would give to private people. It will be tractors, it will be agricultural equipment that is bought with the state money. And then those people will technically rent this equipment and use it to do agriculture and then be able to get profits and then be able to start paying off the government. That is what people do. But right now, as I said, as we speak, those tractors are not there. The investment itself is not there. It's not just tractors. All the other equipment that is used to do modern agriculture today, the state has stopped a good game. But just like you said, there is no mechanism even. There,
Travis,
there is
go
no
ahead.
mechanism to even provide the kind of support that you are talking about. There's no mechanism there. There are people there on ground who are trying to do this. The mechanism is not there. You talked about the governor in Kano State, at least he brought tractors. That shows that maybe he's interested in doing something. In Akwa Ibom, there is no, or the agriculture revolution in Akwa Ibom is on paper.
Okay, so we it's is it are we now going back to the same circle where I think the Odom administration talked about food sufficiency in Akwa Ibom State, and at the end of the day, I think one of the major achievements in the food sufficiency was the Gary that the former commissioner for agriculture, Gloria Det, came to sell at the secretariat. Are we going through that same circle again?
It is. The governor, as a matter, he has used those terminologies, food sufficiency. Again, for them, this is stuff that the commissioner for information will write, or the governor's press secretary will write on a piece of paper for them to repeat. Food sufficiency. What does that mean? Do they even understand what food In fact, on the anniversary, when the governor read out the statement, the Arise statement of his achievements, he talked about food sufficiency. But nobody can lay their hands on what exactly does this mean? What does food sufficiency mean? Don't forget that not long ago, the governor had talked about giving people essentially grants. That's what it was, because of hunger. Because when Buhari removed the subsidies and all that, he had talked about giving people grants as a means of helping for what he describes as food sufficiency. So that food sufficiency, again, is another thing that we still don't know what exactly he means. If the governor declares that one of my achievements is food sufficiency. What does he mean? You had talked about Gary. Does it mean that those prices of Gary that we've seen have quadrupled have come down? What exactly does it mean? Does it mean that the prices of, because the price of staple foods are only going to come down if it is produced at an industrial level in the state? If there are policies on ground and resources on ground to help people produce those food, that's what will bring food down, the price of food down. The price of food down is not going to be brought by declaration on anniversary days, but the price of food in Akwa Ibom is clearly not down. I can tell you, I know more about the price of food in Uyo than the price of food in New York. I know more. I can tell you this. Over here, my wife goes to the shops. My wife can tell you, that's the price of, potato. I don't necessarily know it. There's some things that I buy myself, but in general, I don't have a good idea. But do you know that I know the price of Gary? I know the price of rice. I know the price of Obu. And why? Because the prices have hit the roof. And people that I support there say to me, look, this is how much I used to buy. In fact, I'm in the market, and while in the market, prices of foodstuff change while I am in the market. The state has not addressed that. Look, we know there's a general hunger problem in the country, but Akwa Ibom receives 30 billion, between 20 to 30 billion naira every single month on derivation. The governor has the power to change that narrative through agricultural policies. He's not doing it. At least that has not happened within the 1 year. I don't know whether he's aware that the 1 year he has been there, the price of foodstuffs have hit the roof and they're not coming down. That to me is the test of any success in agricultural policy.
Agricultural revolution juxtapose it with the bulk purchase.
Yes. That
So-
was the bulk purchase. The bulk purchase, I think it was, I just did not use the correct term. The bulk purchase I'm not an economist, but it's a very stupid economic move. It's very stupid. Apart from the fact that it's so temporary, but it is stupid. And I've been told that it's also been corrupted by favorites of the government who are the ones who are benefiting more from this bulk purchase. So the idea is that the government will go and buy food and then come and sell it at a cheaper price. I am trying to think of what time in human history that was done the last time. Who does that? That you go buy food, even during the Civil War. I was there, I was a child during the Civil War. When they bring they used to bring, I think, is it UNICEF? That's what they called it. Some kind of United Nations thing. At least when they brought the rice and they brought it to us, they gave it for us free of charge. They didn't tell us, hey, you see this rice? Buy it as a lesser price than the expensive rice we had in the market, because the market was skewed. During the Civil War, the market was skewed, which is another reason. A lot of people don't realize that what they're experiencing now in Akwa Ibom is what I experienced as a child during the Civil War. During the Civil War, I saw the price of rice. There was rice. There was garlic. Those things were there, but you couldn't buy them. The prices were wild, but that was because there was a civil war. There was a blockade. So because of the blockade, people smuggled in food and sold it. Today, it looks like a blockade. That bulk purchase has become a sham. That whole idea, the idea was never a smart idea in the first place. That I will go buy food with use Akwa Ibom government money, go buy expensive food. And by the way, even the numbers that were given, even the person who was asked to run the bulk purchase, I criticized it in one of my podcasts. A guy called Dan Akpan. There's nothing wrong with Dan Akpan. I've met him. I think he was in the federal house sometime. The issue is not him, but he has no expertise to run bulk purchase. He has no expertise to run bulk purchase. Even the person that was asked to come and run this bulk purchase does not have the expertise. So it was just a shoddy program that was brought there. a lot of the beneficiaries were people who were connected with the government. I'd asked the government to publish the names of those that essentially were the contractors for bulk purchase, because there were contractors that were involved here. And what is the reflection of the bulk purchase? How many people benefited from it? The bulk purchase was supposed to change the dynamics of market price in Uyo. It did not change it. It was an abject failure.
Okay, it's laughable because if the bulk purchase was to change the price of foodstuff in Uyo, I'm just wondering the magic that would happen when you have a population of over 7 million people. How you will purchase gari and rice enough to change the price of the price of foodstuffs in Akwa Ibom State. Now, it brings me to some issues that you have raised here about providing infrastructure for people who want to go into agriculture. I particularly know of someone who established he established a hatchery in his village.
Yes.
But there was no road to the hatchery. He tried to use solar. He tried to use solar energy to generate light for the hatchery that has to be. It needs to have light 24/7. It didn't work for him, and such a person. Is there any part in the agricultural revolution that addresses infrastructure for agriculture? Is there any part? Because I leave it at that.
It is on paper. It is on paper, and the government is not even interested. Because to me, this should not be that complicated. If that's your policy, you should be able to say, hey, we are working with 2,000 farmers. Here are the 2,000 farmers. This is where they were before. This is the support we've provided for them. This is what they've been able to gain from it. Even that kind of information you cannot get. So to me, this is another propaganda piece of the 1-year anniversary. I would challenge anyone, and I'm very prepared. What we are doing is a public thing. I'm prepared for pushback. I'm prepared for people to contact me. You write me. This is going to be on YouTube, so you could come and write, or you could DM me and tell me, hey, here we are. We benefited from it. This is how we benefited from it. We received tractors, or roads were built, or roads were fixed so that we could transport stuff from the places, from hatcheries or farms or whatever we would do. I'm very, very prepared to come back with Mr. Udofia and say, there are people who now say that all of these things were provided to them. So I challenge the government, and I challenge the beneficiaries of this to give us evidence, because we've not seen none. All we've seen have been complaints from business people, complaints from farmers who are trying to key into this agricultural revolution, and are finding out that it's only words.
Okay, away from agricultural revolution, another aspect of the Arise agenda is the rural development. 1 year so far, how far have we gone in this aspect?
Yep, I think it is tied to agriculture, interestingly enough, because a lot of the agriculture is in the rural areas. That is another thing. I am hard put to see what exactly has been done in these areas. Again, it is on paper. It is written on paper. What are the aspects of rural development? And by the way, if you want to go into rural development, you're talking, for example, apart from agriculture, you are talking about infrastructure. You are talking about healthcare centers in rural areas. In fact, if you want to say, well, it's only been 1 year. It's only been 1 year well, the governor has not had time to build all of these roads, do all of these things. But there's some simple thing that could be done at a rural level. When I spent almost 4 to 5 years of my life doing an audit of Akwa Ibom healthcare system. As at the time I was doing this, Akwa Ibom had 45 general hospitals and about roughly 400 healthcare centers. Those healthcare centers are in the rural areas. They are totally another level of healthcare, right? Because in healthcare, you have the primary level, which is like the teaching hospitals and all that. Then you have the secondary level, which are the general hospitals. Then you have these rural healthcare centers. These were the centers in those days in a village where there's no road even, but at least the center will be there. It will usually be manned by a nurse and other junior medical staff, where at the minimum you can go test for diabetes there. You can go get vaccines there. If you have a small injury and they need to bandage you, they can take you to those centers. I know this because as a child, when I went to my village, they were existent. And as a professional who did an audit for Akwa Ibom State government, my report was presented. My more than almost 400-page report was presented to Akwa Ibom State Executive Council. So I'm not just talking off the top of my head. So I had an opportunity to go around the states. I went everywhere. And by the way, I have pictures, so I'm not just talking too. And those healthcare centers have some of the buildings have even fallen down. Some of them are just standing there because the primary healthcare center it's not a big deal. It's just a building. It's like a small little building where at the minimum you could go there and do, in fact, when a woman has to deliver a child, it's usually people from that rural health center who go to house, because in those people delivered a lot of the children from home. They will usually go there and help out if the closest hospital is too far. I know this for a fact. Those centers, the situation a year from now is basically the same as last year. It has not changed. What you hear is that, the governor is launching a new hospital in Ibesigbo Sultan. What does that mean? That is a secondary healthcare this thing. What we need are those rural, they call them healthcare centers. That's what we need. Think about our state is a small state, and there's about 400 of them. So it covers the state. It actually penetrates the rural areas as much as anywhere else in Akwa Ibom. Because if you're going to have annual hospital in Uyo, you have Itomba. So people kind of have access, but in those rural areas, you don't have any of that. That is what the healthcare centers do. And I went out of my way. As a matter of fact, I had I don't know what that, because I don't really believe that when I talk with people, I disagree with them. I don't consider that arguments. I just feel that we just disagree. There's a very important person I spoke to Akwa Ibom recently. When I brought this up, he told me, the governor has opened a new hospital in Ibesigbo. And I said, that's not what I'm talking. I don't care. I'm saying those are the ones that matter to people. The healthcare centers those ones matter. If somebody has a heart attack, it is from that rural center that they can send someone to go and stabilize them before they can see a big doctor. That, to me, when someone talks about rural policy, if you've not been able to handle something like that, to me, that's a failure. And it has not happened, because I told the person to give me examples. In the Ibesigbo itself. Forget about to come and launch a big hospital. I mean, they launch these things. That's not the issue. The issue is these rural centers.
Okay, it brings me to the issue of Uyo Capital City Development Area.
Yes.
I'm sure when Atta conceived that, he was looking at expanding the capital city, because I come from Sribom. As a matter of fact, from my village at Farabia, I can afford to work in Uyo, stay in my village, and come to Uyo. So in Atta's wisdom, areas like Uruan, Ibesikpo, some part of Ibiono, other aspects of Nsribom form the Uyo capital city development area. From your own perspective, do you think that there is a deliberate attempt by the current administration in 1 year to even understand what the concept of the Uyo capital city means in pursuing the urban development, the rural development?
I don't think so. I believe it or not, to them they look at even that UCDA, that Uyo Capital Development Authority. They, to me, the UCDA, yes, we give Victor Ta credit. Victor Ta, it's one of the smartest Akwa Ibom person alive that we've had, and I revere him, even though I have issues with his politics. I don't think he's as rough as people like Edwin Clark and all that to stand up for Akwa Ibom people. But in terms of his planning for Akwa Ibom, no one can compete with that. Like his concept of the state, because a lot of them are just building on his concept of an existing concept that, like the UCDA itself. If you ask my opinion, this particular government is using that as an excuse not to do things in rural areas. Because I do agree that, of course, if by the time you leave Ibesikwa and start going out a little bit, you then start seeing the real rural areas. I feel that yes, I feel that there should be a difference. I don't consider, for example, those areas not far from Uyo itself as a rural area. I don't. But it is considered as a rural area, even though it is part of Uyo Capital Development Territory. I am from Oboridom. Oboridom is not rural. I mean, the Zenith Bank is right. My grandfather was buried just a few feet from where Zenith Bank is. So how rural can that be? So to me, resources should be used for places that are really rural. For places like in the local government area, in the senatorial district. I've been to those places and I can't believe how it's I go to that and I can't believe where I am. That I'm in Akwa Ibom. I'm in Akwa Ibom. So to me, there should be, maybe the rural thing should be redefined, because the places around Uyo, Itam, all these places are rural. I do agree that some are rural, because by the time you kind of go in a little bit, because if you go, for example, beyond, if you go a little bit beyond where my village is and start going towards Nodo, then you start seeing areas that you would legitimately consider rural. So I think that should be looked at again. Where is rural? Is your Capital Development Authority rural? Is it all of it that is rural, or is it part of it that is rural? Those things needs to be defined. For example, as I gave you the example of my own village, Oboridom. Oboridom should be considered a suburb of Uyo, not rural. After that, yes, then you have the rurals. After Afaratai, when you start going up, then you have the rural.
Okay, so let me just take you back to the agricultural revolution. If you own from your own point of view, what do you think should be done in this current era in Akwa Ibom State, given that we've done an assessment of it and we have seen that they are not, Akwa Ibom State is not where it's supposed to be in terms of agricultural revolution. I mean, from your own exposure as someone who is in a country where agriculture is taken serious?
Okay, I mean, let me say two things here. Number one, I am going to tell you what I think, even though I'll be honest with you. I think the way that system is structured and the unwillingness of the political actors to change that structural dynamics makes it that whatever suggestion that you bring is like pouring water into a basket. Because I'm saying this because take like the agricultural the revolution thing. What is so complicated? There are two things that needs to be done under normal circumstances. I'm not sure whether this can be done confidently or if the governor has the political will. If he, in fact, I doubt that he has the political will and courage to do this. It's two things. If you want to do agriculture, right? And agriculture is huge. First of all, that is what our common people do more than anything else, even though they're departing away from that now. Young people are moving to go and be SAs and all that, the politicians these days. But if that's what you want to do, there's two things you do. Number one, you get experts on agriculture and let them tell them, look, I want to do agriculture revolution. And then they will then help chart a course for you about what you need to do. Number one, get experts. Number two, the second thing you need to do, get practitioners. I know people in Uyo today. In fact, technically my father-in-law, the person that when I went to marry my wife, he was, because my real father-in-law had died, so he was the one now who is like my father-in-law. He owns one of the biggest farms in Akwa Ibom, one of the largest. Yeah, talk about hatchery. He has hatcheries. He has done work for NDDC. I mean, they train NDDC people in his farms. It's a very big farm. So people like him, why not bring? And he's not the only one. It's just that I know him. But I've heard of other people, bring them together. Bring the smaller farmers, like the ones you just talked about, who don't have infrastructure. Why not bring them together and find out from them? And if possible, do this as a town hall. Be transparent so that even people who are not aware of it will now be aware of it. That is what Governor Mono should be doing. Instead of receiving all these people from outside the state, it looks like he's focused on everything except Akwa Ibom State. That's what when you wake up in the morning, you should be doing. Bring these people together and say, look, I want to do agricultural revolution. These are the experts. This is what they're telling me I need to do. You, what are you doing in your place? What are your needs of your own farms? Because I'm saying this because my father-in-law has never one day been contacted by the government. He owns what I think is probably the third largest farm in Akwa Ibom. A private farm he established himself with his own, with hard-earned money and outside Akwa Ibom as an executive and other things he did outside. He has never one day been asked. This is somebody that NDDC consulted to help train NDDC people, not just in that, to help train NDDC essentially from the South, from the whole of South. He has not been asked one day, what do you need? What can we do to help? What can you help us with? So that group needs to be brought together. The two groups. Let me just quickly tell you the story. One of the people that I'm most critical about in Akwa Ibom, one of the leaders, is the Senate President Godswill Akpabio. I have criticized him. We know each other personally. I don't criticize him on a personal level. I only criticize policy. I do not criticize individuals. I criticize policy so that even if they're not happy with me, what usually happens with time, they become my friends again. But one thing that Godswill Akpabio did was when he became governor, or even during his campaign, he talked about this. I didn't know, I was not there during his campaign. He told me himself. And I found out from the campaign literature that he had talked about this. One of the things he wanted to do was healthcare. He wanted to change the whole dynamics in healthcare. Godwill gets elected 2007, I believe. He gets elected. And he turns to Mano Konumana, who was the Secretary General, and says, look, I want to do, these are the things we want to do. Do you know anybody? We want to bring Akwa Ibom people, not just Akwa Ibom people in Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom people from all over the world, experts in this particular field. Let them come and sit and give us their own recommendation about what we need to do. And then we'll take it from there.
How did you do that?
That is how come I was hired as a consultant in Akwa Ibom in 2008. And I was surprised because when I first met him, I met him in the US. We could not arrange a meeting in Uyo. I was always very busy anytime I visited. So this time he insisted I must be brought to him, and I went and I saw him for the very, very first time. That's why even today, as much as I disagree with him, no matter my disagreement with him, I still have a level of respect for him. That respect can never go away. That does not mean I would not still, if I disagree with his policies, I will still disagree. I'm an independent person. So, but he brought me in. I still remember it because I still remember how we arrived at the hotel where he was staying. I thought it was going to be a 5-minute thing. And you have to pay to park your car outside. And I didn't want to pay. I told my wife, just wait there in the car. Let me just go and see him for 5 minutes. And I ran in there and he sat me down. And he said, please, this is what I want to do in Akwa Ibom. What do you think? What should I do? We ended up spending almost 2 hours. And I was shocked how he quietly listened to me. He didn't need to listen to me, but he quietly, and when I finished, I still remember that day. That is why I feel that this type of thing should be on record. In fact, at some point, there is a political leader who came and he said, I think he sent for him. He said, come, let them bring him, let him come and hear this. That guy's name is Chief Jackson Soniudo from Etinan. So they brought him into the room. He was actually in his bedroom in this hotel in Washington, D.C. And God's will told me continue. When I finished talking, and he turned, he said, Chief, we need to bring this man to come and advise us. I'm going to have him come to Akwa Ibom. He had never met me in his life. I'm going to have him come to Akwa Ibom. I'm going to, have him contact. I'm going to arrange my commissioner for health, Louisa Okwe. In fact, he sat there and contacted the commissioner for health, Louisa Okwe. He sat there and contacted Savalata while I was sitting right there and arranged for me to come and advise the state on what to do. Now, the thing is, I'm an individual. So what he wanted me to help him do, because I was like, look, there are other doctors. In fact, the doctors who are bigger than myself, the Akwa Ibom doctors in North America. So contact them too. He said, no. He said, why not you do it for us? You spearhead it yourself. Get them together. Get people that you think need to work with you together. I will do it. To cut the long story short, eventually, the healthcare policy in Akwa Ibom was written by us. Now, we interacted with doctors. I came there. When I came, Akwa Ibom had about maybe 110 doctors because I had to do 2 sets of things. I had to do what the state needs to do immediately to begin, affecting the healthcare situation and long term. And the immediate thing was something that I told the governor, this needs to be done in months. Because when I was told the number of doctors compared, when I studied epidemiology in medicine, I didn't need to be an expert to see that if you have 6 million people and you have 100 doctors,
Okay.
that's even Afghanistan has better numbers. I said number one, hire new doctors. That does not need a lot of waste of time. New doctors can be hired in months easily, and they can be hired from Nigeria. And why are these doctors not in Akwa Ibom? Because the pay is bad, the whole situation is terrible, and they fled to other states. Within a year of my starting work, Akwa Ibom hired close to 300 doctors. How do I know this? I attended a lot of the interviews myself. So and when we have more time, I can talk in more detail. I'm saying this to you so you understand why this was one of the reasons I did not give up. There are people that told me you are wasting your time in that place. But I feel that even to hire those doctors, people don't talk about it today. I feel that I felt a sense of contentment. As at the time I came, Akwa Ibom had only one consultant, one. Within a year, we hired 10
It was
consultants.
just kind.
And how did we hire these consultants? We hired these consultants because I found out that the consultants left the state or didn't, some of them, like Dr. Itukunwa, for example, who was at the consultant level, didn't want to work for the government because the government was preventing him from running his private practice. And the government does not pay anything. So why should I come and waste my time there? So he's running his private, he doesn't want to quarrel with the government. So people like that were there. There were other consultants outside the state. I said to the governor, and what I'm saying to you, I used to interact with him directly. That's another thing too. Think about that. This is a governor that is so hard for people. You know how I found out in Nigeria is like to see a governor is such a big issue. But I was able to see God's will anytime I wanted. Anytime. As long as it was on this business, I was able to do this. I said to him, okay, we should increase salaries. He said, you know, this is civil service. You can't just increase salaries like that. There has to be a specific reason. I said, well, if you don't increase the salaries, if you don't give doctors cars, that's why they run away. And he said, okay, why not? Let's do it right. Let's do it right. You prepare a report. Go to other states where they have this kind of, find out salaries from other states. Find out what type of benefits they get in other states. Because considering the money that we are getting, we should be able to do what any state in Nigeria is doing for doctors. That was how I went to Bayelsa State. I called my schoolmate. His name is Steve Azaiki. Steve was Secretary of Government to Alan Ezega, who died. Steve said, come to Yenagoa. I went to Yenagoa. I looked at the system. I brought paperwork. That is the paperwork that they used to practically double Akwa Ibom salaries in 2009. And while I was there for the first time, Goswe gave us the doctors in Akwa Ibom. I'm not going to go into this story because we don't have the whole day, but I'm just giving you a sense of how a governor, later on we had disagreements because he did not keep to some of the things. He did those initial things. And later on he did not do others. But it does not matter. He still did the things. I think it's very, very important that I mention that this was a governor who wanted to do healthcare. Look at what he did. If Governor Moino wants to do agricultural revolution, he can do something similar.
Okay, we've spoken about agricultural revolution, rural development. We'll come down to aspects that you think, okay, in the rural revolution, it looks like he has been found wanting. Agricultural revolution, it looks like he has been found wanting. Rural development. So before we go to the other aspect of the Arise agenda, where would you say at least he has scored high from your own point of view?
Okay, so um, I hate to say this. Look, sometimes people like balance. That
Mm.
okay, it cannot be all bad, it cannot be all good. I understand all of that, but I need to point out something. I'm going to point out something that I think he actually did, even though I just feel that part of the problem. I don't know whether it's because he did not inherently understand what the issue was, but he kind of did something that I would consider inadvertent. Let me say this, and I think I need to make this very, very clear. One of the things I've always tried to do in my life, I had my public life, I had vowed, because I really, really feel that Akwa Ibom is where it is because it is in Nigeria. I had always felt that because that a lot of the problems in Nigeria is because of the way the federal governance system is structured. So because of that, I have always tried not to criticize our Ibom governors. For your information, Umoino is the first governor ever I have spoken publicly against. I've never done it. I never criticized Victor, even though I have a lot of things that I felt Victor had done wrong. Godswill, the same thing. Umoino, the same thing. I know all of these governors at personal level. I've met them, I've hung out with them, I have engaged them. But the, or maybe the reason, I don't know, whether partly because I've not engaged Umoino, the thing with Umoino was that I just felt when he was doing the campaign, and I am somebody who I am very interested in what is going on in Nigeria and Akwa Ibom in particular. I follow these campaigns. I mean, every single video. I will tell Asam, send me every single video, even the smallest video of Umoino appearing somewhere, I'll get it. So I followed him. And I just felt, I was trying to find out. Because one thing I believe, and is, look, you can have an agenda, 1,000 things. But I feel that any governor or any leader needs to be able to say, I want to be known for doing one or two things very well. The other ones, you may just have to do it, but one or two things very, very well. Just like Gospel Fabio can claim, I built roads, no matter what else. And I did not see a single thing that I thought Umoino wanted to do. I did not. I was really trying to get into him to find out. I listened to all these campaigns. I see all of them everywhere. I followed them very, very well, all of them. And I know the actors. I don't know about why. I know why. Yes, I know all these people. So it's not like these are some strange people to me. So I rooted for them. A part of me wanted them to win and wanted them to do it. By the time the campaign finished, I turned to my independent friend, not those working for him. Those working for him are going to like him no matter what he does. I said, what is his plans? Forget about these long things they write in a book. Can he say, I want to build roads? And one thing I did not see. And then he became governor. And you know, I had this negative feeling, I'll be honest. That had nothing to do with him. I have never met him myself. It's not about him as an individual. It's about the state that I love very much. One thing that he did at the beginning that I was happy about, and I think it's there, it's just that the thing has not worked, is the establishment of the Ministry of Internal Security and Waterways. I may be wrong, but I think that's the only new ministry he has established. That may be the only new ministry where they actually appointed somebody because he inherited Umoino's campaign, Umoino's cabinet. And
Udom cabinet.
I'm sorry, he inherited Udom's cabinet and has not changed anybody. I hear they just fired one commissioner last week. But he did not really, really change. But he created a new ministry and appointed a new Commissioner General Koko Essien, I believe that's his name. He brought in. Why I'm saying this is I had always been very worried about Akwa Ibom security. In the days when I came, because in those days when I came to do consultancy for God's Will, I used to spend 6 months every year, almost a 6-year period in Akwa Ibom. So I spent time there. And The period I was there was when there was a lot of kidnapping. They used to kidnap people. They kidnapped the late General Akbar right while I was there. So kidnapping was a serious issue. And then kidnapping went down. Kidnapping went down. Also brought event to kidnapping went down. My opinion, because I was there, is that kidnapping went down after Assam was appointed Attorney General. Kidnapping fell right after that. And I was there to see it. But after that, the state was then, considered a peaceful state. There was not a lot of kidnapping, a lot of, it was, there was not a lot of that, at least for the period of Umoina's government. But even during Umoina's government, I started hearing things. But that was because there was general insecurity in the country. So you had some of the herders coming to establish cells in Uyo and all that. But in any case, you could see, for example, now, I'm sure you've heard, kidnapping has kind of started to come back, creep back into Akwa Ibom. I mean, they're kidnapping traditional rulers, they're kidnapping medical doctors. There was a kidnapping today that was reported to me. So I had always hoped that when a new governor comes, you must make sure that you nip the insecurity in the bud. Because if you don't nip it in the bud, it will become worse. And I'm sure you heard in those days, when I mean those days, I'm talking about 2012, 2013, 2014, when Calabar was supposed to be a safe place. In those days when I was staying in Uyo, on the weekends, all of us would run to Calabar. Because in Calabar, you don't need Mopo. In Calabar was kind of safe. Are you aware that Calabar today is one of the most unsafest places in Nigeria? They started kidnapping doctors in Calabar. Calabar has been turned into a war zone. Calabar is unsafe today, clearly. But Uyo is safe. Uyo that we used to run away from to Calabar is much safer. My point is that the security situation in any way can change quickly. So when he formed that ministry, I was very excited about that ministry. In fact, I was so excited about that ministry that I contacted former army officers, retired army officers who have retired and have moved back to Akwa Ibom, police officers who were senior officers. They moved back. In fact, they formed and they have an association now in Akwa Ibom, which is, I think, about 2 years old. I don't think that association is up to 3 years old. So I contacted them on my own. I reached out to them. And if I had a Zoom with them, kind of tell them, you people, I'm so happy. I hope you can help keep this security there. So the governor then actually appointed one of them to be the commissioner. That is one thing that I think he did right off the bat. The only problem is that there's infighting in that ministry. That commissioner is not capable of running that ministry. You should fire that man. You should remove him. You have a lot of qualified Akwa Ibom people. He can pick anyone he wants. I don't care. To run that particular ministry because there's nepotism going on in that ministry. There's infighting. That is why that ministry is there now. You cannot fight kidnapping. You cannot. In fact, Dr. Isu, who was released by kidnappers, who was kidnapped in Mercy Hospital in Oron, it is the governor who and his people who made sure that man was released. It was not the ministry. It was not that ministry. So that's the one thing, if you ask my opinion, that I think he has done right. And even that one thing, as you can see, he appointed a wrong person. A wrong person. I mean, I don't know whether he knew that. I don't know whether anybody knew this guy would be like this. I don't know who he was. He's a big general, but the man is a waste pipe in that.
I think at some point, some of us even thought that the whole aspect of that ministry was to bring those body boys into check, because those boys were becoming a menace. In fact, the Udom administration empowered them so much that the boys became a menace to the society, and to So you could see different groups of people in uniform. Akwa Ibom is the only place you see people get up and sew uniform and ascribe the role of security to them. So it's sad.
So,
So
so by the way, Nekan, I don't know whether you know this because yes, I think I should have mentioned something. There is a Ministry of Internal Security, right, which
yeah.
is a government ministry itself,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But there is a group the governor also formed, a security group. That's the people that you are talking about,
Hmm.
and he empowered them separately from this ministry. Those are the people you are referring to. Funny enough, the Ministry of Internal Security was actually to parade the waterways and all that kind of a thing. That's what it was. But there is a security outfit, essentially financed by the government today. Those are the people that you are referring to. Those are people that the government is basically doing that to calm them down. And in my opinion, that's my opinion. I'm not saying anybody reported it to me, but and I can I'm ready to defend my opinion anytime. It is my personal opinion that those people are people they use in the last election and they're going to use in future elections. So they kind of want to make sure that they create this structure for them, a kind of I would call a paramilitary structure, if you like, for them. But then the government is basically financing these people. That is a shame, but that does exist. People have talked to me about it. In fact, I've had people who have said to me, "Oh, why don't you talk about this?" I said, "Well, if I have a chance, I'll talk about it because I know that it exists."
Okay, coming to a critical aspect of this administration, which one cannot ignore, is the aspect of education advancement. Education advancement. How would you rate the administration the last day in terms of education?
Education is another tough issue. So let me tell you how I would rate this government or any government. I rated Udo Emmanuel's government the same way. One of the things, there was a series of investigative journalism done by Premium Times, done by a guy called Cletus Upong, who I think is a deputy editor of Premium Times. So they have done series of investigative journalism on Akwa Ibom schools, and they had pictures of the schools. Some of the schools either did not have roofs, some of them all kinds of things, considering how much Akwa Ibom collects. And my understanding is that attempts were made to remedy that. That has not been enough. I am not sure that we have enough to judge the governor yet on this. I've not seen any particular thing he has done, but Akwa Ibom schools are in shambles. The physical structures are falling in a lot of the schools. The children, they are receiving subpar education. I'm sure you know this, and you can that a lot of people in Uyo now are sending their children to private schools.
Hmm.
Private schools, there's been a multiplicity and a proliferation of private schools for a very simple reason. The government schools and the educational policy in Akwa Ibom has not improved at all. So, and I've not seen it. I don't know whether it's fair to judge what has happened in 1 year. And I've not really heard I don't know whether the governor has boasted about education because he has nothing to boast. I have heard the governor talk about providing some funding to the university, which is another thing. Why do we need all these universities? There's University of Uyo that belongs to the federal government. There's university, the Akwa Ibom University itself. Then there's another new university again in Ikorabasi. That new university in
Hmm.
Ikorabasi. Are you aware that these universities are struggling to pay salaries of professors? Forget about the federal university. I'm talking about the university owned by Akwa Ibom itself. There's they they are not doing well. These universities are not doing well. How do I know this? There was a time I was trying to establish the thing. There's a thing that university do where they establish linkages with each other, with my own university in New York, with that university. We held talks, and I remember, when we tried to arrange something, it became clear to me that the university is not. I did not want to disgrace myself here in New York because we have linkages with universities in Africa. We have linkage with University of Ghana in Legon. So I know what a linkage means. The one I tried to do in Akwa Ibom, the quality of the professors, the whole quality of the programs, I decided to leave it alone until when we are ready. So to me, that's the one thing that the governor says that I am aware that the governor is doing something. But the other things like secondary schools, primary schools, and all that, no, because people who can afford it are sending their children to private schools, and that's because the everything is very bureaucratic. It's about how many teachers should we hire, and if we hire the teachers, which local government do they come from? This seems to be more important than improving quality of education in that place. And they must hire a teacher, whether that teacher is qualified or not, as long as the fact that they have not satisfied the 31 local government thing. That is part of the problem going on with the schools. So, Aneka, it look like you have one more question.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's sadly, I listened to the Commissioner for Education speak.
Okay.
Yesterday, Tibet, when the governor had a media chat with journalists, and she was called to come and answer question. Honestly, there was no aura, there was no confidence, and you could imagine the magnitude of ministry, the kind of ministry that was in her hands, and you measure the capacity for such. So it brings me to the question of how far can the current set of appointees, the commissioners that have been, some of them came from Akpabio's time,
Yeah.
and they are still. How far, as we round up, how far do you think that this current set of commissioners can take this administration?
Not very far. Not very far. This particular group of commissioners are not qualified to be commissioners for the most part. That is not to say that there are no individual commissioners amongst them. Yes. Oh, we have commissioners. We have like the commissioner for sports, Monde Uko, who was there even during God's wisdom, is still commissioner till today. So I am aware that you have commissioners like that. But you just mentioned the commissioner for education. Uh, what was the commissioner's background before she became commissioner for education? This is part of the issue. By the way, I hear that Governor Moino is going to reshuffle his cabinet. That's what I heard a few days ago, that he had said he is going to reshuffle. I don't know what it means to reshuffle. We should replace the cabinet. We should look for a cabinet of professionals. We should look for the most qualified Akwa Ibom people. If he wants to do it in Nigeria, fine, do it in Nigeria. But look for the most qualified Akwa Ibom people in Nigeria to man those ministries. Because, for example, you just talked about the Ministry of Education. I mean, it is disgraceful. It's like the kind of thing Buhari used to do, where we'll go and bring Adamu, a journalist, to come and be the federal minister of education for the whole country, and we were mocking him, talking about Fulani nepotism. But we are seeing it in Akwa Ibom today. We are seeing it in Akwa Ibom today. Those commissioners, all of them should be replaced. All of them. Almost to a person should be replaced. I don't know the commissioners a lot, but what I know about them, I don't know that much. I see some of the work of the commissioner of information, for example, in Memobong. I've never met him, but even though I've never met him, he looks competent. He looks like, and what is the competence? He knows how to defend his governor very well. That part, I'm not doubting that they know how to do it. But outside that, though, a lot of the commissioners are square pegs in round holes. We should replace the commissionership. And if you want to start to hear less criticism, and if you want to start to want people who want to work with him, then I'm sure there are many people, not somebody like me. I finished my own job. I did my own. I spent years of my life in that state, and that's done. I finished there. But there are other people though. There are people who can do education. There are people even who have retired and are basically between here and Nigeria. The guy called Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford was running a school system in Georgia. He was the superintendent of the whole school system. The number of children in that system is probably more than the number of children in the Akwa Ibom State school system. These are experts. These are experts in curriculum. These are people who have done schools. And I remember talking to him in those days, but when I spoke to him, no more in his time, he was still working. And I told him, you will be good for a government in Akwa Ibom. I'm saying this because we've had a couple of people I know who ran school systems in the state here who went back to their state of origin to run the school to be commissioners. So I know that's possible, right? So that's up to the governor. Let him decide whether he wants quality or he wants sycophancy. That's left for him to decide.
Okay, so as we round up, what is the way forward for us as a state to take us to where we are supposed to be?
Well, I mean, one of the things we've done today, I know we're going to need more time, is to punch holes in government policy and what the government needs to do. Don't get me wrong. There are actually people who are paid to praise the governor. There's no problem in praising him. Anybody who wants to praise him, God bless them. That's their job. That's their life. But I really feel that the state will progress when you listen to voices of people telling you, no, you are not doing it right. No, you are not doing it right. If the governor is smart enough to listen, those are going to be the important voices for him. He doesn't even need to acknowledge anybody. He can just listen to these voices and try to improve the state. He needs to get knowledgeable people, which I know is not lacking for sure, because the politics is well and good, but the politics is not going to save Akwa Ibom. The politics is going to drag Akwa Ibom backwards. It's going to drag Akwa Ibom backwards. So that is my advice to him. But I also call on our people to speak. I know it's hard. Look, I am not stupid. I mean, if somebody lives in Uyo or works there, especially if you work for a lot of the things you can do there is probably connected with the government. So you don't want to say something. Fine. I will say it. I've always said it. I have always said it. Even when I came there and was doing those things in the hospital, I would appear on radio or sometimes on television. In fact, Val will escort me to go and do interview on NTA. And I'll do the interview. And after the interview, Val will call me. He'll say, you know, those type of things you are saying here, you know, I cannot say it. I say, you cannot say, but I can say it. But then the radio station people, when they receive calls, receive all that, people were very happy. And they were always asking me to come back because I speak truth to power. And we need more of that. So we need as much of that as possible, even if you don't live in Akwa Ibom, if you're an Akwa Ibomite and you're afraid to speak out, if you live somewhere else, speak out. If you live in Abuja, speak out. If you live in the country, speak out. How do you think Tinubu became president today? He sat in Chicago and London criticizing Abacha. If he had given up, people like him, we would still be probably run by soldiers today. So yes, when you are out of it, it gives you, first of all, it gives you a different look. But I guess people get courage because of that. I guess I would not say that as a young boy growing up there, I had the courage to speak out and I was grabbed and thrown into detention and all that. But I call on people to speak out because that's the only way you can help our state. It's not by singing praises of the governor or singing praises of the rulers there. That is not the savior. That may put some money in your pocket, but that's not the savior. And there are a lot of people, Akwa Ibom people, don't need money in their pocket from the state. They need to speak out.
Thank you very much for your time. I must commend you for this robust discussion. I hope from time to time we would have the opportunity to have this discussion again, because I feel particularly that those of us that are speaking out, we are not the enemies of the government.
No.
We don't love the government any less, and we are speaking out because we know it's for their own good. I sometimes I weep at the review that they give the governor sometimes, and I wonder if he would really know that all is not well. And I thank you, and for your kind of person, you are encouraging a lot of us to keep talking. We will talk. I would always talk and
No,
bring.
thank you. So
Yes.
I can thank you very, very much. I mean, I intend to do this as frequently as possible. We will arrange this as time goes on. New issues will come, and we'll come and talk about the issues, and we will not hesitate if there is this great thing, because you saw me here. So as critical as I am of God's will, I am ready to acknowledge that, hey, this was what he did. So I have no difficulty of doing that, but I cannot make up things in my head and praise people when they've not done anything. That part is not going to happen. But we're going to do this again. So thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank
for my subscribers and our listeners, stay tuned. We will be back with these kinds of discussions, and we're going to try to make it live in future, so that it's not just me and Aniakan talking. You'll be able to join the discussion, whether you are pro-government, whatever you are, we don't care. As long as you are coming to speak to support Akwa Ibom people, that is what is the most relevant. So thank you so much for joining us
you.
at Ofion
Thank,
Akwa Speaks on akwaibom.com. So Aniakan, good evening.
thank you. Thank you. I'm
Okay.
grateful. Thank you. All the best.